Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, our group will presenting about the Philippines, focusing on its economic background and the latest inflation of the country. This presentation will help us understand how inflation affects the cost of living in the country. Introducing this is our group members. First, I'm Siti Masara. I will talk about the background of the Philippines. So, the Philippines is an island country located in the Southeast Asia in the Western Pacific Ocean. It consists of more than 7,000 islands and islets. The capital city of the Philippines is Manila, while Quezon City is the most populated city. Meanwhile, Luzon is the largest islet, followed by Mindanao. This geographical structure makes the Philippines unique, but also challenging in terms of economic development. Now we go to the next slide. We talk about the people and language. The people of the Philippines are called Filipinos. Filipinos are ethnically and culturally diverse. Most of the population are descendants of the Malay race. There are nearly 100 ethnic groups and each with different language and cultures. This diversity reflects the rich cultural background of the country. In the Philippines, agriculture is an important sector in the Philippines economy. Although it contributes a small share to GDP, it employs about one third of the workforce. The fertile land allows farming throughout the year. Main agricultural products include rice, sugarcane, coconuts, and bananas. Rice is the main staple food of the population. However, agriculture depends on imported fertilizers and chemicals, which make food prices sensitive to the global price changes. Now we go to the inflation in the Philippines. The latest inflation in the Philippines at 2025, inflation in the Philippines increased. The average inflation rate was 1.7%. In December 2025, inflation rose to 1.8%. The main cause of this increase was higher food prices, especially vegetables and cooking oil. Since takes a large part of household spending, inflation strongly affected the cost of living. Although inflation in 2035 was lower than in 2024, food prices remain the main concern for the population. Now we will move to the objective of the study. The objective of this study is to explain the economic background of the Philippines. This study also aims to examine the inflation trend in particularly in 2035. In addition, it seeks to identify the main factors causing inflation. Lastly, this study helps us to understand how inflation affects the cost of living and purchasing power of the people.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Adela Suha and I'll be presenting about types of inflation. There are three types of inflations and the first one is demand pull inflations. Demand pull inflations happens when total demand in the economy exceeds the available supplies of goods and services. In the Philippines, this usually occurs during periods of economic growth when more people are employed and remittances from overseas Filipino workers increase. As household income rises, consumers spend more on necessities such as food, housing, and transportation, as well as on leisure activities. This situation becomes more intense during festive seasons like Christmas, school opening periods, and national holidays. When demand for goods and service increases sharply, when producers are unable to increase supply quickly, the excess demand pushes prices upward, resulting in demand pull inflation. Okay, so the second one is cost push inflation. Cost push inflation occurs when producers raise prices to cover higher production costs. In the Philippines, this type of inflation is mainly driven by rising food, electricity, and transportation costs. For example, higher oil prices increase the cost of manufacturing and the transportation of goods. especially from food from rural farms to urban areas. In addition, supply chain disruption caused by storms and other natural disasters further increase production costs. These rising costs are the passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices, leading to cost push inflations. And the last one is built-in wage price inflation. Built-in inflation, also known as the wage price spiral, happens when rising wages lead to higher production costs, which the cost produces to increase prices. In the Philippines, priority adjustments to the minimum wage are made to help workers cope with the rising cost of living. However, when wages increase, business face higher labor costs and raise the prices of goods and services. As prices rise, workers demand even higher wages, creating a continuous cycle. If this wage price spiral is not controlled, it can result in persistent long-term inflation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fatina Najwa, so I will explain about public policy that are being used by Filipinos to overcome inflation in their country. So first, I will explain about contractionary fiscal policy. Contractionary fiscal policy is usually implemented when inflation is too high. The main of this policy is to reduce aggregate demand in the country. The government does this by adjusting public spending and taxations in order to stabilize price and control inflation. One of the main measures under contractionary fiscal policy is reducing government spending. The government cut on non-essential expenditure such as subsidy or large public projects. When government spending is reduced, less money circulates in the economy. As a result, both consumer spending and business investment decrease, which help reduce inflationary pressure. So, another important measure is increasing tax. When taxes are increased, households have less disposable income to spend. This leads to lower consumptions, especially on non-essential goods. At the same time, business may delay expansion plans, which further reduce aggregate demand and help control inflation. Next, I will move on to contractionary monetary policy. This policy is implemented by the central bank and focused on controlling the money supply and credit conditions. The main objective of contractionary monetary policy is to maintain price stability and prevent excessive inflation in the economy. So, one of the key tools used in contractionary monetary policy is raising interest rate. Higher interest rate make borrowing more expensive for both consumer and firm. As a result, consumer delay major purchase such as house and car, while firm reduce investment. This decrease in spending helps lower demand and control inflation. So another important tool is open market option. The central bank sell government securities to financial institutions. This action reduces excess liquidity in the banking system. With less money available for lending, credit growth slows down, which help reduce inflationary pressure.
Assalamualaikum and good day to everyone. Okay, in this section, I will present our recommendation to address inflation in Philippines. Okay, inflation is mainly caused by high demand, rising production costs, and wage pressures. If inflation is not controlled, it can reduce people's purchasing power and affect economic stability. Okay, therefore, policies must control price without hurting economic growth and people welfare. A balanced fiscal, a monetary approach is needed to achieve this goal. Okay, first, the government should strengthen target fiscal measures. This means reducing non-essential government spending instead of instead of cutting all expenses. Okay, essential services such as healthcare, education, and food program must be protected. At the same time, a low impact and non-urgent project can be postponed. Improving budget transparency and efficiency can also help reduce waste and control inflation more effectively. Okay, second, the government should implement progressive and strategic tax policies. Heavy tax on low-income households should be avoided because they increase the cost of living. Instead, higher tax can be imposed on luxury goods, environmental activities, and wildfire profit. These tax help reduce inflationary pressure while protecting vulnerable groups. Temporary and target tax measure can also stabilize price without slowing economic growth. Thirdly, supply-side intervention should be enhanced to address cost-push inflation. The government should improve agriculture, energy, and transportation sectors. Increasing food production and reducing post-harvest losses can help stabilize food prices. In addition, supporting renewable energy can reduce dependence on imported fuel and lower long-term production costs. Fourth, the Bangko Sentral NG Philippines should maintain a cautious and data-driven monetary policies. Gradual increases in interest rate can help control inflation without slowing economic growth too much. Regular monitoring in inflation data is important to make accurate policy decisions. Clear communication from the central bank also help maintain and investor confidence. Okay, lastly, wage policies should be strengthened alongside productivity growth. Wage increase should be aligned with productivity improvements to prevent a wage price spiral. The government and private sector should invest in skill training, digitalization, and innovation. This allow workers' incomes to increase without significantly raising production costs. Okay. In conclusion, controlling inflation in the Philippines requires cooperation between fiscal and monetary policies. By implementing target spending, fair taxation, supply-side improvement, and careful monetary control, inflation also can be managed while ensuring sustainable economic growth. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Ain Dalila binti Saiful Azrul. I will present for the conclusions. In conclusion, inflation in the Philippines happens because of high demand, high production costs, and wage increases. When people have more income, spending increases. At the same time, higher fuel, electricity, and transportation costs make more goods expensive. For natural disaster, a dependence on import food and fuel also cause prices to rise, especially for low-income families. To control inflation, the government and the Bangko NG Filipinas must work together. Reducing non-essential government spending on slowly increasing interest rates can help control without harming economic growth. For the long term, improving local food production, upgrading the transportation system,
using renewable energy, and linking wage increases to productivity can reduce costs. These steps can help stabilize prices and protect people's purchasing power. Thank you for listening.